Kim Jong Un needs money desperately. Despite the fact that North Korea's population is consistently on the verge of famine and faces brutal poverty year after year, in 2022, roughly one-third of the country's GDP was spent on the military. So it's vital that Kim Jong Un finds another source of income so he can keep building nuclear warheads and intercontinental missiles. But rather than enact large-scale economic shifts, adopt a more liberal attitude, or build relationships with the international community, the North Korean government has chosen to make its money another way, with cybercrime. And it's led to one of the craziest heists ever, one that makes the biggest bank robberies in history look like mere child's play. These crimes have been paying off big for them too. Taking inspiration from the KGB's actions in the 80s and 90s, North Korea's hacker groups are now generating enormous amounts of wealth. In 2022, they made over 10 times more money from cybercrime than the entirety of their exports. And that money is not only lining the pockets of the nation's corrupt elite, but it's being funneled into a rapidly advancing military sector. Through international cyber heists, North Korea is slowly starting to crawl out of the hole that they've been stuck in for decades and fund a weapons program that could bring the world to its knees. And they need it, since North Korea's economy is in a bad way. Following the Korean War in the mid-20th century, North and South Korea had fairly similar GDPs. As the South adopted a more Western-style liberal economic approach, they saw their wealth explode, tapping into the international market. South Korea first established itself as an industrial manufacturer and an exporter. Shipbuilding quickly became their bread and butter, and companies like Hyundai and Daewoo established them as economic world leaders. With the wealth pouring in from long-term multi-million-dollar contracts in the shipping industry, South Korea was able to invest in high-quality education, which then fueled their growing tech industry. Companies like Samsung and LG blew up in the 90s and continue to thrive to this day. The country's automotive industry also took off, with Hyundai and Kia leading the charge. Add to this tourism, manufacturing, mining, and weapons technology developed in partnership with the US, and South Korea today has a powerful, stable, and diversified economy. It stands as the 14th largest economy in the world, a far cry from its war-torn agrarian roots just 60 years ago. In contrast, the North has failed to move with the times. Ideologically, they've taken the opposite approach to their neighbors, adopting a communist model that's consistently suffocated the economy. North Korea has what's called a centrally planned economy. What this means is that things like prices, profits, investments, and trade deals are all closely controlled by one central body. In a market economy, businesses are free to set their own prices, strike up deals with whomever they like, and dictate the flow of money largely on their own terms. The benefits of this are obvious. They get increased profit margins, can exploit gaps in the market, and businesses have to compete with one another for quality and cost, driving innovation and making life better for the consumer. North Korea's centrally planned economy doesn't have this kind of fluidity. Their attempts at getting their foot in the industrial manufacturing door were initially a marginal success through the 1970s. A large proportion of their workforce worked in the industrial sector, and the country could have been ready to kick on to become a manufacturing powerhouse. But it was not to be. North Korea is a famously difficult country to farm. Only 17% of the land is arable due to the mountainous terrain, difficult climates, and poor quality soil. Since the country has always insisted on being self-sufficient, this has led to the government having to heavily support domestic agriculture with copious amounts of chemical fertilizer and financial subsidies. Even then, the country has routinely dipped in and out of famine since the Korean War. On top of that, North Korea had a huge international debt to settle, and the plan to offset the money they'd borrow from China and the Soviet Union with money that they made from exports didn't work out. They had to default on all of their loans except those from Japan at the start of the 80s. They owed a lot to the Soviet Union and were in no position to pay it back, even after Russia wrote off around $8 billion of the debt in the 2000s. It's hard to know the exact numbers, but estimates place what they still owed somewhere between $5.9 billion and $14.7 billion in 2019. Those numbers don't seem so bad on a global economic scale, but that debt could be as much as 87% of the country's gross national income. This would put them around the top of the list of heavily indebted poor countries, potentially as high as 4th place. North Korean leadership hasn't helped the problem either. Given the country's lack of farmland, it would make sense to rely on imports to feed its population. They also have a huge amount of untapped natural resources that they have failed to capitalize on. A report in 2012 found that they could be sitting on up to $6 trillion worth of rare metals, which are a hot commodity in the technology sector. Many of these metals are also imported by China, South Korea, and Japan from all around the world, meaning that they would have no problem selling those resources with comparatively low transport costs. And yet, North Korea has failed to tap into that market in a meaningful way. Currently, they mainly export coal to China for moderate profits, but they are severely hampered by their machinery, much of which is still from the Soviet era, meaning they can't mine in high volumes for low prices. In 2022, almost 70% of their exports were going straight to China, with 99% of their imports also coming from the PRC. Considering that they were exporting around $192 million but importing $903 million, it's no wonder they're in bad economic straits. Then you add on the enormous annual defense spending, and the picture painted is a country that is not helping itself. We haven't even mentioned the economic sanctions placed on them. As a result of years of aggressive military escalation, as well as flagrant violations of the international nuclear weapons laws, North Korea is buried under a mountain of sanctions. Virtually every major economy has a string of sanctions against them, restricting everything from fuel to diamonds to investment in infrastructure projects from entering the country. If you want to do any kind of deal with North Korea, there are so many hoops to jump through that it becomes easier just to go elsewhere. Should the North back off some of their hardline ideologies, they would be able to unlock a host of ways to increase their income, reduce their costs, and gradually level up the country's economy. Even diverting some of the defense and propaganda spending toward education, mining equipment, and food imports would be a logical start. Even just showing a bit of remorse for their nuclear program could help ease off some of the sanctions, but all of these changes come at an ideological cost. Allowing capitalism to creep into their economy, foreign nations to come to their aid, and relinquishing total control over their people would be an admission of defeat. It would be waving the white flag over the failed version of communist North Korea. So instead, they're turning to ill-gotten gains and have reaped immense profits from it. Much like the USSR toward the end of the late 20th century, they're stuck in a mostly closed system. Kim Jong Un's obsession with North Korea remaining a hermit kingdom, shunning free market capitalism at every turn, means that their economy is totally stagnant. Nothing is moving, nothing is happening. To keep going, they need quick cash injections, but with so much debt stacked against their name, it's not going to happen anytime soon. At least not officially. Behind the scenes, North Korea is fast establishing itself as one of the biggest players in the heist game that the world has ever seen, and they are hitting one of the richest, most chaotic casinos the world has ever seen: crypto. By this point, we're all pretty familiar with the basics of how cryptocurrency works. We had enough diamond hand enthusiasts doing the hard sell on the internet a few years ago. For those who need a refresher on the basics, here it goes. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency. It doesn't have one central bank controlling it with a ledger to keep track of who owns what. Instead, there's a big blockchain in the middle of it, which acts as one giant ledger for every transaction everywhere. No banks, no government, no owners. Everyone just has their own wallet which they can receive crypto into and send crypto from. Every time they do, those transactions are immediately and irrevocably written to the blockchain. One central account of every transaction that's ever happened. That means that any user can look into anyone's wallet at any moment and see exactly how much money they have sitting there. The wallet won't have a name or personal details on it, but you'll sure as hell be able to see how much money is in it. At the time of writing, the global crypto market is worth $2.75 trillion. Around 50% of that is just one form of currency, Bitcoin. The market is notoriously volatile. While the traditional stock market might see gains and losses in the fractions of percentages day to day, crypto lurches up and down wildly. Crazy bull runs can see individuals double, triple, or quadruple their money virtually overnight, but far more often people lose their life savings gambling it away into a hole that just keeps dropping lower and lower. Gambling really is the word for it. Crypto represents potential for enormous profits and life-ruining losses. It's the biggest roulette wheel in the world right now, and it just keeps on spinning. But North Korea took a look at all the money being thrown around and saw something different to everyone else. While people around the world flock to sit at Bitcoin's roulette table, North Korea has been standing in the back corner of the room eyeing the vault. Sure, you could make some modest profit sitting at the table, being patient, but if you crack the code to the vault, then it's guaranteed money, no gambling about it. And so the heist began. And it's a heist that has single-handedly begun to turn the tide of their economic woes. It's time for Kim Jong Un to get a crew together, and there are two big players that you need to know about here. The first is called the Lazarus Group. Nobody knows exactly how many people work for the Lazarus Group. No one knows where they are or what their next move is. Analysts believe that members of the group are trained in China. North Korea doesn't have the technical expertise domestically to run a successful hacker cell. They first appeared on the scene in 2009 with their Operation Troy attack, which targeted the South Korean government in Seoul. It was a relatively basic DDoS attack, which stands for Distributed Denial of Service attack. Essentially, it's a brute force way to bring down a network or a service. You flood the system with as many zombie users as possible, completely overwhelming the servers and slowing down or crashing systems for real-life users. DDoS attacks can be costly to the target, but ultimately they don't do much harm. You can't steal any data with a DDoS attack, and the only way to make money from it is to offer to stop it if a bounty is paid, which almost never works. You don't walk away from it with any money or confidential information. It's just a way to harass someone that you don't like and get your name out into the world. But their next high-profile attack was different. In 2014, there was a highly controversial film slated for release. It was called The Interview, and it starred Seth Rogen and James Franco playing characters who were going to North Korea to interview Kim Jong Un. The film was a comedy made by Sony poking fun at the North Korean leader, something which evidently got under Kim Jong Un's skin. That year, hackers from the Lazarus Group cracked Sony Pictures' defenses. This was no simple DDoS attack. They managed to gain access to huge troves of confidential information, from private info about employees and their families, salaries, film scripts, plans for upcoming releases, and much more. On top of that, they deployed a wiper to go through and destroy all of the data in its wake. In just a few years, the Lazarus Group had leapt forward in their skill far beyond what the West had been expecting, and they didn't stop there. After going for Sony, the Lazarus Group had grown advanced enough to set its sights on some of the most secure targets in the world, banks. From 2015 to 2017, they started hitting financial institutions around the world. In Ecuador, the Banco del Austro lost $12 million to them. In Vietnam, the Tin Phong Bank lost $1 million. The following year, they ramped things up, taking $81 million from the Bangladesh Bank, and then a further $60 million from Far East International Bank in Taiwan the year after that. The next major hack attributed to the group was the infamous WannaCry hack in 2017. It was the first major hack using a crypto worm. This worm allowed the virus to jump between computers via their connected network. For example, it could jump from one computer to a printer and then to other computers connected to that printer, and even over Wi-Fi networks. Even though the attack lasted just 7 hours, it affected over 200,000 computers all over the world. In the UK, the National Health Service had their IT system shut down by the virus, bringing hospitals up and down the country to a standstill. WannaCry was a form of ransomware. It locked computers down, encrypting all of their data so no one could access it, and promising to undo the damage if they paid a certain amount of Bitcoin within the time window. The longer they took to pay, the higher the price tag rose. In the end, there was a really quick and easy solution to bring down the attack. Whenever the virus would jump to a new machine, it would first check if a specific domain name had been registered. If it hadn't, the virus would keep going. It was a simple kill switch that was quickly registered and the virus stopped spreading. In total, the Lazarus Group had only made around $160,000 from the attack. But questions started to be raised about whether that was the point of the virus. If it was designed to make money, the hackers wouldn't have put in such an easy kill switch. They also hadn't made much money from it at all, leading analysts to start to suspect the attack was state-sponsored, a proof of concept to spread anarchy across the developed world. The other group you need to meet is Kimsuky. While the Lazarus Group has hit targets all over the world with a large variety of attacks, Kimsuky has been laser-focused. They've been hitting one target repeatedly for years: South Korea. In 2015, they went for Korea hydro and nuclear power. It wasn't a ransomware attack like Lazarus. They were there for information. Cracking into South Korea's systems, they accessed confidential data about their nuclear power systems. In May 2021, IT security experts then found them lurking again in the internal networks of the Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute. On top of that, they also went for retired South Korean diplomats, government members, and military officials. In 2019, again with the goal of harvesting valuable intel about the South's inner workings. They've even made attempts at hacking officials from the UN Security Council. Unlike Lazarus, Kimsuky believes that knowledge is power. One of the biggest surprises to have come out of North Korea over the last couple decades has been their rapid advances in the fields of nuclear physics and advanced weaponry. Kimsuky may be one explanation. And just like Kimsuky might have given North Korea a boost in technology, both hacker groups are now set on doing their best to jumpstart the economy with massive cash injections. So let's scope out crypto, like a team would scope out a bank. On the surface, it looks pretty impenetrable. Unlike real cash, you can't just pickpocket someone's wallet as they walk by. You also can't break into some mainframe and change the values written on the ledger. Blockchain technology means that the ledger is constantly being verified and backed up by all users all over the globe. If you try to change it on one node, all the other nodes will reject your changes and shoot them down as being illegitimate immediately. So how do you break in? The same way every heist movie gets through the door. Human error. You can't hack your way into someone's Bitcoin wallet, in the movie sense of the word, with some computer program that works its way through the code itself. But what you can do is exploit people's stupidity. Crypto is really complicated, and most people don't really understand how it works, even people who make their entire livelihoods with it. For most people, third-party software and hardware is the best way to make sense of crypto. Large websites known as exchanges act as virtual cash points for you to buy and sell crypto easily from their massive stockpiles. You can then store the crypto in a digital or hardware wallet made by another third party. These companies want crypto to be accessible, so rather than force you to use long strings or characters and massive passwords that underpin the blockchain, they give you simple usernames and passwords linked to your email. And with that simple step, the impenetrable fortress of cryptocurrency turns into just another account for hackers to target. You might get an email from the exchange asking you to update your password on your account. You follow the link and it takes you to what looks like their website. You put in your old details and within seconds all of the Bitcoin in your wallet has been transferred. It was a fake email from a hacker group. Oh, and the worst part is all the crypto transactions are final and irreversible. You have no way of getting that money back once it's gone. Lazarus and Kim Suki have used these tactics to empty the wallets of thousands and thousands of crypto users around the world since 2017. But they don't just hit individuals where it's small payouts, they go for bigger targets, the exchanges themselves. In order for the exchange to be able to give you Bitcoin when you go to purchase it, they need a stockpile of their own. These stockpiles are often spread across multiple wallets for security reasons, but they will still be absolutely enormous. A lot of those crypto exchanges are new businesses, just out of the startup stage. They aren't global banks with decades of experience in cybersecurity and massive teams of experts. They're small companies working with new technology, so sometimes they're ill-equipped to deal with a hacking attempt from a state-backed organization. One particularly ingenious way North Korea is suspected to have gotten into these exchanges is by planting employees into the companies. North Korean IT workers under false identities are believed to be working all over the world applying for jobs in busy crypto exchanges. If they can get the job, they'll gain access to start chipping away from the inside, looking for vulnerabilities. If you can get into the internal systems of one of these crypto exchanges, you may even be able to find the login details for all the users on the site. Worse yet for the company, you could even find the details of the exchange's own wallets, storing millions of dollars worth of crypto. That is exactly what happened to BitHump, Ubit, and NiceHash in 2017. For South Korean Ubit, this attack saw them lose 17% of their crypto in one go. For NiceHash, it was around 4,500 Bitcoin, which at today's exchange rate would be worth around $300 million. Bear in mind, North Korea's total exports in 2022 came to just $192 million. So you can see why this is an avenue they are fiercely pursuing. And it only seems to be getting worse. Crypto theft is rising year over year. In 2021, it was a $3.3 billion industry. The year after, that number rose to $3.8 billion. As much as the blockchain is secure, most of the time users' crypto is held behind flimsy usernames and passwords. All it takes for an exchange to fall is the wrong employee clicking on an unsuspecting link in an email. There is huge money to be made stealing crypto, and right now North Korea are the ones spearheading the charge. In March of this year alone, they laundered $147.5 million in crypto. Since 2017, they've been linked to $3.6 billion worth of crypto cyber attacks, but those are only the ones we know about. It is possible they are laundering far more than this in the shadows that we're not yet aware of. North Korea is steadily building a shadow economy, much like the KGB did across the Iron Curtain during the Soviet Union. A second economy that doesn't officially exist, but funnels enormous sums of illicit money into the country. Combine that with their access to the South's nuclear research projects, and you have a country capable of rapidly accelerating their war effort in the coming years.